Hey everybody, it's Erin here today, and today we are going to make some quick and easy Christmas cards using just pens and paper and Xyron adhesive. Couldn't get any easier than that. What I have popped into my Creative Station light is the double laminate from Xyron, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a sheet of paper. This is actually some heavy-duty watercolor paper. I wanted something stiffer, and we're going to laminate it because that's going to be the beginning of how to make these cards. So I like pulling a little bit on my laminate just to kind of give it a little bit of help as it goes through the machine. So I'm actually going to flip this around. It'd work better if I go with my left hand pulling and my right hand doing the thing. There it is. And that's it for the laminate. I had already made one, and you can kind of make them any size you want. I use the smaller Creative Station Light to make a smaller template. And I'm actually going to trim off, if I can find my scissors. I always seem to have so much stuff on my desk. I've been playing around with this for the past little while. It's kind of fun. All right, now, what do you actually do with this? And why did you have to put a piece of paper in there? So you can see the color. White is your best color, or a little bit of an off-white. Don't pick a dark color because then you can't see what you're doing. All right, and I was playing around with this one. It's absolutely fine, and I'm actually going to keep this one for my reds because then I don't have to clean it so much. And then this one I'm going to use for my greens because Christmas colors are red and green. And that's where we're going with that. So what I have here, and we're going to make two sheets. We're going to make one sheet that's all green and one sheet that's all red, and then we're going to let it dry and cut it up, of which I already have some that are done. So the first one we're going to do is the green sheet. I pulled out all the green colors from the water soluble markers of the 20 pack from Derwent Academy. They're nice and small, and that means you can get a lot of fun colors for 20. And I'm just going to start drawing lines on here in the fun various colors of green. You could do one color. I like the blend of the colors. I think it just adds something. You just have fun. Layer them up. This is so hard so far, right? The reason for doing the laminate paper is, if you notice, the pens are not sticking to the laminate. It's like resisting. Then, real hard stuff, get out some water. And see, it's already starting to pill up. Now, from here, I'm pulling out my heavyweight marker paper. I tried watercolor paper, and it doesn't work. It did not get the look that I wanted, which was this kind of watercolor effect. Even though that's watercolor paper, this paper, the heavyweight marker paper, worked beautifully on this. So I pulled out a sheet, and all I'm going to do is just kind of stick it on here and lift it up. And look how cool that is. You can let it run. Okay, and now see all the little droplets? This is why I'm using a whole sheet for this. You could even, now that we've got just little small droplets, you can flip it over. And you can make it as smushy or as clean as you want. If you want to have more of a marbly effect, then smush it around. If you want more of like splotchy effect, then don't smush it around. Kind of play with it and have some fun. I like being able to take the paper once I've done the first smush and take my laminate paper and kind of splotch it, as you can see now, and get some really cool kind of texture to it. Look at that. So those little pock marks and stuff. And because I blended all the colors, I'm getting a little bit of some color variance to this. If I want to add a little bit more of, let's say, a darker tone, I could come in here now, just do my darker tone. So now I can come in and just add a little bit of some darkness in some areas and just do that. The last thing you can do if you want is you can take like a paper towel and just kind of pat dry. You're going to lose some of your smushing. If you want to roll your paper towel, it's kind of speeding up and getting the excess water, but you're not losing all those cool definitions. Now this is still wet. This is still very, very wet. I wouldn't do anything about cutting this yet. You need to let this sit off to the side, but look how fun that looks. Isn't that neat? Then when you're done, you just clean this up and it's done. But look at that neat effect. And now I can cut this up and I can use this for a lot of cards. This one sheet I can use for a ton of cards. So you've got a ton of colors in here that you can use the same effect. So like you've got various numbers of pinks, you've got purples, you could do oranges, you could do blues, but since I'm doing Christmas cards, I'm sticking with blues and greens. All right, so I'm gonna let this off to the side. Let's do the red one. So I'm gonna pull off this guy. So just to show you, same thing. I made this one nice and long, but you can make it shorter. And this one I'm going to do a little different. There's only two colors in here that I would call like reddish. So we're going to change this up, and the first time we're just going to do a single color on here. Just one color. Get it on there. And instead of putting the paper to the laminate or to our little template, we're going to go the other way around. We're going to start this way and do the smushy effect first. If I feel like I'm running out of ink, I think I did the lighter one first. Come in and replace it. And then just smash. Now I'm going to do the darker color to add a little bit of a change. In between, I'm going to roll off the excess color. Now, if you're afraid that you're going to get your colors blended, you can definitely tear off like the top sheet here. I'm almost running out of paper towel. So that way you're not getting a bleeding of colors if that's bothering you. Okay, so I've pulled off the excess water. I'm going to respray this with the darker color now and come in and get that darker tone in here. It's up to you about how dark you want to make this. If you want to make this super dark, like lots of color on here, you want to leave some more white options. Be careful about, like, I wouldn't do red and green on the same one because that's just going to make mud because they're opposite colors. They're too close and it's like blending paint. It's not a good idea to blend green and red. So just kind of go until you feel like, I've got it. So since these are water soluble, you can do that. It makes kind of a fun little art, and kids can do this. I mean, just think about that. Everybody gets their own little laminate thing. They get some markers, bring us a little spray bottle of water. I mean, it's super hard to make water. You could even like flick water. If you don't have spray bottle, you could just flick the water from your hand out of a little jar. Sorry. So there's lots of ways that you could do this, and you can make some fun cards out of this, or just background paper. I mean, this technique can be used for all kinds of stuff. This is just a fun way of kind of playing around. And there we go. So after all that, I decided to switch gears and not do cards. I actually did make the cards, and I did my calligraphy on it. It just wasn't quite what I would call up to par. I have to work more on my calligraphy. I did a whole bunch of them. I mean, I made a ton. All those papers that you saw me make, all those watercolor papers in the background, the red and the green, I used all of them. And I made as best as I can, but I just don't think they're quite there. I'm not going to throw the cards away. I'll probably end up using them, but I'm switching gears and showing you other ways to use the watercolor paper. So obviously you can make cards, but let's go to plan B and make something different. So for this background paper, I did the exact same method, but instead of using 4 colors of green, I used 2 colors, which is a blue and a green, and I just took my paper, I took my laminate, and I truly did this. I went just like this, and kind of placed it off to the side, did a little bit of spritz of some water, and then smushed it down. Just, you know, kind of went in, same method I did before, and as you can tell, if you let it dry, and then come back on another time, you can get darker colors. You don't have to get such a light color scheme. So you can do many, many layers of colors on this, and it doesn't seem to reactivate with the colors below once they've dried. So that part I think is really cool. So this is a blue and a green, and I have already die cut out, and I didn't do a super bright color. I kept it very monotone from this snowflake die, which I'm going to show you here in a minute. So that's the first one I did. The second one I did is I did the purple and the red, and I did the exact same thing. And I've already cut out a section of that, and I did cut the snowflake as well. So as you can see, you can get lots of tones of colors. This one I did a little bit differently. Instead of doing both colors at the same time, I went through and I did the entire background with red, like you saw in the video. Exact same thing. It was actually 2 colors of red that you saw in the video. Same paper, same concept. And then I went back after it had dried overnight and did the purple. And so I took my purple, just like you saw before, and just the single color. So there's no wrong way how you can do this. And this is how you can add in additional colors of layers. So you can get more color, just like that, by adding in a third color or a fourth color or a second color. You don't have to just do it once and leave it. You can keep on adding layers and layers of color to it. You just have to let it dry overnight or in between. And you know, truly, if you don't oversaturate it, it doesn't take that long. So I've already die cut one of those out as well. And here it is. And it kind of already had a little bit of a template of what to make. I'm just kind of tweaking it a little bit. You can obviously use this for a whole bunch of stuff, but we're going to make ornaments with it. So I need to cut out a circle out of a little bit of a strong paper. I already cut one circle out of the Rhenia foil paper in silver, but it's a little thin and it needs to have some stiffness to hang up as an ornament. So I'm also cutting it out of the Derwent watercolor paper because this is really sturdy paper. So I'm using that. And then I'm cutting out another small snowflake. Let me put this underneath. Out of the foil paper. Now what I have done so far is I've already cut out a large snowflake, so the large one, and I've already cut a small snowflake out of the watercolor paper. So if you make one watercolor paper, you can make a ton of these snowflakes, and you can reverse it. You could have the watercolor paper be the large snowflake, but this is the plan I have. So this is a thicker die, so when you use a Cuttlebug or you're using something other, because this is made for Sizzix, you want to make sure that for this particular Cuttlebug and this Sizzix plate, it's the main plate and then two B plates, so it's a little different. For this particular snowflake, what you need is you're going to need a large snowflake, two small ones, and two circles. And you don't need a second circle, but because I'm using a thinner paper, I need something to make this a little more stiff. So I'm going to take my circle, and I'm going to take one that actually had a little bit of some watercolor on the back. So you're not really going to see this. This is just a strength thing. Put through my Xyron sticker maker. Make sure to rub that really good to get all the sticky. Now that I've got sticky on one back, I'm just going to back these together to make them nice and strong. You could have stuck these two sheets together first, like done like a bigger section and then run it through the die cut, and then you wouldn't have to worry about trying to get your circles on point or, you know, whatever works. I am also doing a second snowflake in the copper with the pink and purple paper that we made earlier. Okay, so I want to emphasize a little bit about my snowflake. So I'm going to pull out one of the two colors. I'm going to pull the blue, and I'm just going to add a little bit of some definition to my snowflake. So I'm just going to take my Derwent marker and add a little bit of some defining lines to my snowflake. I don't want to push too hard because I don't want to get too thick. I'm going to add like a little ball at the end of each. Just come in, drawing lines. It does not need to be perfect. You could skip this stage, but it just adds to that kind of character of what's there. You could pick a completely different color for this if you wanted to. You could go with a black. You could also do the green tones. You could bring in a silver, a gray. You know, any of those colors that you feel like kind of go, but I wanted to emphasize a little bit more of the blue. Now you get this kind of cool background effect, this mottled effect from the watercolor that we did, emphasizing with a little bit of the blue. And if you want it to not be so crisp, you could spray it with a little bit of water and it would kind of bleed a little bit, but I want it to look crisp. Lots of options here. So when you have a snowflake, you're going to be putting this piece on the back, right? But I don't want to see the white, so I am going to need to put this piece in front. So I'm going to go ahead and run this through. The side I want to have sticky, I'm going to have facing down. Pull it through. Do a little bit of rubbing. And between this two sandwich, I was trying to find a good place to actually put my string because this is an ornament of where to hang it. So we're actually going to do it on the sandwich, if I can get this piece apart. There we go. It was being stubborn. You can pick any combination of materials. I like this because it brings in that little bit of that grainy color. So whatever you want to use as kind of your hanging piece, go for it. I'm cutting off way more than I need. For my other one that has all the, like the pinks, the reds, and the purples, I've actually pulled out a pink string. So we've got two very different color schemes going on here, which I think is fun. Again, I pulled way too much. I do want my string, my thread that I'm using to hang this with, to be nice and long. I always found when I hang things on Christmas trees, and I know I'm really early for Christmas, but now I'm not going to be behind, is you don't want to have anything that's too short. Like if I made my loop this big, it'd be very hard to find a branch to put it on. But if I make my loop bigger, I find it easier to stick on my tree. So there you go. This also, if you don't want to have this as a Christmas ornament, this could double as a gift tag, a nice fancy gift tag that you put on, because we are going to be adding a little sentiment to the back. You're going to be seeing that too. Okay, so now that I have this, we're going to come through. I'm going to stick my thread and I'm going to go down a little bit, because we're also going to be adding a brad. And when I add my brad in, my brad is going to end up going right in the middle. So it's going to help secure my thread so it doesn't pull up. So if this for any reason comes a little bit loose, it gets tugged on, the brad that's going to go through right through the center is going to catch on that knot right there. So it's got a little bit of some double security going on. It's got the sticky from the Xyron, which is fantastic. And I can see where it is when I poke my hole later. So I'm not going to be shortchanged on that either. So there is that on there. Now I need to make this entire thing sticky, but I don't want the thread sticky. So we've got to do a little finagling here. And this time you're going to run this through, but hide all your thread. So that way it doesn't get, your thread does not get sticky. Remember, whatever is the only thing that's on the bottom side is what's going to get sticky. So if you kind of bury it, the thread will be just fine. So find the top, and it doesn't really matter which side. Decide how you want to have your ornament. Do you want your ornament to be faced up like this? Do you want it to be sideways? I think I'm going to have it so that there's a gap here for the thread to go through, for the wall piece hanging. So this is going to go right here like this. And it is sticky in there, and that's okay, because that's what's going to help stick the rest of it. And then there you go. You got the beginning of your little ornament. So cute. I love that. So there is that. So here we go. We have a layer of snowflake here, and it just fits inside. So I think I'm good. I think I'm just going to leave it like this to really accentuate the snowflake. If you wanted to, you could come back here and you could do the snowflake on the back. And I think I'm going to. I think I'm going to add a pretty snowflake just to add a little something interesting on the back. You could also, if you want to, you could die cut out another one of the watercolor snowflakes for it to be on the reverse as well. There's lots of options here. So this whole snowflake can fit in here. The other option is you don't put anything on the back. It's really a personal choice. It does not matter, you know, which options you pick or what you have. It is up to you. Be careful pulling this off, because it is quite what I would call spindly. It's got lots of long legs that if you pull too hard, you could rip. And make sure that you get all the front plastic off, so that way you don't rip your paper. Miss that right there. The whole thing is nice and sticky now. And just place this on here. You could also do the sticky thing to the front, but you've got enough sticky right here in the center. If you are concerned about the fact that these pieces are loose, you definitely could die cut or add adhesive to the entire front. That's what I would call a personal preference. You also wouldn't have to do your snowflake. You can orientate the snowflake. I like that it's off-centered. So here I did it where it's kind of like hiding in there. It's like this little baby snowflake that's just kind of just barely there, which I think is kind of fun. So lots of options there. Next, you need a little brad, and any brad that you want to use is fine. I pulled out a couple. I pulled out a red one for my pink and red and purple. For this, I just pulled out a silver. I couldn't find a blue or a green. Otherwise, I probably would have gone with that. And I'm going to poke a hole going all the way through the center. There it is. And if you feel like you still have some sticky, I forgot to mention this right here, because there's kind of like an opening right there. Just use your finger and just kind of wipe off the sticky. It comes off really easy. I truly am hardly feeling anything there, so it'll be just fine. Open this up, place your brad in the center, just like that, and it just gives like a fun center to the whole thing. See? I personally don't mind that it's got a little bit of gold going on with some other colors. I think that's kind of fun, but some people would be like, no, don't do that. It's too many different colors. That is just a personal preference, I think, to the person about which color brad. If you don't like the brad, you can always stick something on top of it. So many different options there. What I'm doing right now is I'm centering the back piece right here, the brad, because we're going to be putting something over top of that to seal that. That is where the sentiment is going to go. I want to pull in some more of that green color. Look how cool that looks already, right? It's that little hint. And the more you look at it, the more you can see all the different layers that are on there. It just adds that kind of fun effect. Okay, so now we're going to flip this guy over, shift it up a little bit, get out a sheet of some paper. I'm actually just going to use a small section of the watercolor paper we already had, and we're going to stamp. Now, you can pick whatever stamp set you like. I happen to have one that says Peace on Earth, Joy to the World, Merry Christmas, and my Merry Christmas just fits on there. We are actually going to be trimming it down to be smaller, but you can pick whatever. I mean, it's going to be thank you. You could handwrite something. I mean, the back side is where you can kind of do whatever. You could put the date on there, your call. Got my nice little round stamp blocks. The stamp just fits on there, which is perfect. And we are going to be using the same markers. This time we're going to use the thicker markers because they have a nice brush tip. Now, this is the same brush tip that I used to do the calligraphy earlier that I didn't like. So you can use calligraphy. I'm just not very good at it. I'm still learning. So hence why I went with a plan B, but just also to show you other uses for this watercolor paper because it's so pretty. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm coming through and I'm using the color. One of the colors, you could pick the green, you could pick the blue, it's up to you. I'm picking the blue on this one. And I'm going to stamp the Merry Christmas with the watercolor pen. So these pens can also be used to color your stamps, which I think is fabulous. And I'm using it on that marker paper, so it's not going to have that bleeding effect. The same one that I did the watercolor. So I'm bringing in that watercolor again. Oh, look, it had a Christmas. I need to get a new section. And just come in and stamp. Trying to find a nice good straight edge. Here we go. There we go. Merry Christmas. So now it ties all your colors together. Carefully come in and you're going to want to trim this up, make it look nice and neat. I also want to trim pretty close to the edge because I don't want this to stick off too much. Make it rounded to kind of hide some of those corners. If you want to pick a smaller stamp so it fits better, that's fine. There, now it fits nice. And you can't even see it. It's like it barely is poking out there, but you really can't tell that it's there. Run this through your Xyron again. Turn this into a sticker. You could also do a stamp that's more vertical. Like I could cut the Merry Christmas. Ooh, I didn't think about that. You could cut Merry Christmas, therefore it's not so long, and you've got 2 layers, so you're going widthwise. I might do that on the next one. I didn't even think about doing that. Dum, da, dum, dum. I've already turned this off. It'll work. And I'm going right over my brad. So even if I did go and I cut this in half, I would put one of the words over the brad just to secure that brad so it doesn't get caught on anything. So there we go. There's the Merry Christmas. And notice I'm rubbing this and it's not bleeding and coming off. It is staying nice and neat. And there is one of our ornaments. Now I'm going to do one final little something cute to it. Bring in a little bit more blue. I've got some Nuvo Jewel drops here. This one is in Sea Breeze. And I'm just going to test this real fast. I always like to get it started. I also want to test the color. Yeah, it's just kind of pale translucent color, but it still hits those tones of colors. And I'm just going to add a little dollop in the corner here. And make sure you let that dry nice a long time because it's going to have needs some time to dry. I find just leave it alone overnight, kind of set it off on the side table so that way it doesn't have a problem. A couple hours and it should be the point where it's not going to do it like it won't, like you stick your finger and it wipes off, but it's going to still be malleable. You want to give it a little bit of time to kind of set. So here is the copper and the purple and pinky and red one, and this one I took Nuvo drops and I did it before I did everything else, and this one is in bubblegum blush. I did the corners here. I also did all the dots on the snowflake. So the first step I need to do is I need to do this. I actually need to cut one more circle. All right, so I need to add some adhesive to the back of this one. So really any color scheme that you want to pick for this, there's no right or wrong. Add my adhesive to the back. You can really have some fun with what color you make your snowflakes. You don't have to do traditional blue with your snowflakes or silver. I mean, play with it. Have a blast with it. Okay, so this is my sticky one. For this one, I'm going to pull out some fun pink. I could also have done purple. I mean, there's so many options for when you're mixing kind of your colors here. Again, I'm going to make a nice big long string, and of course, I made it way too big. Stick my string on my circle here. Stick the top circle on. I'm going to put these a little closer so that way my ornament hangs a little flatter. There we go. Do what we did before. Remember, run it back through, but this time with my thread in the center. Add my circle to the back. Oh, no, I got to flip this over because now my back is the one that's got no little pieces on it. It's got no nouveau drops. Now, if you wanted to, you could also add nouveau drops to the other side. I'm kind of leaning towards not. It's just a personal preference there. Come in and add in my snowflake here. I want my snowflake to be facing upwards. Add my snowflake to the back. Actually, you know, yeah, no, I like the snowflake on the black. It kind of takes away from the big circle that's holding everything down. So make sure this is on here. Clean off any of the sticky. Run my snowflake through now. Poke my hole in and stick my brad right in the center. Center my brad so that way it's flat on the back. Clean my stamp off the other colors, and this time I am going to pull out a red to help color my stamp. Pull out the brush tip and go ahead and stamp up the Merry Christmas. This time though, is I'm going to split the stamp in half, so Merry is going to get split away from Christmas and they're going to go on top of each other. So they're not going to be one long phrase, it'll be split in half. Come in and stamp that right on top of some of that beautiful watercolor paper that we have created. Now turn these into stickers to make my life easier. I'm going to add the Merry on top of the one with the brad here to give it some stability, and then Christmas is going to go just below that. So there you go, Merry Christmas. And it fits better. You still can see the words. I've done the brad actually overlapped a tiny bit, so it got a little bit extra kind of stability there. And then on the front side, you have your beautiful snowflake. So for this one, I'm changing up the color patterns. Instead of doing the watercolor paper as the small portion of it, I actually cut out the watercolor paper as the large snowflake, and then I also cut one out as a piece that would go in the center. And I like this one because then I've got still the foil color on the front and the back, and for this piece I could still cut and make another one. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this one. Same thing as before. Use the Xyron to create your little centerpiece right here. This time we're going to run this through just like we've done before. Also going to run this piece through. So just like before, place this piece and place this down. This becomes the back of your snowflake ornament, just like that. Flip it over, make sure it gets unstuck. And for this color, I'm actually using a different color of the foil. This one is in turquoise. I thought it went really well with the watercolor that I had created with this. So I'm tempted to make another one for my purpley and pink, and I have like a purple, and I also have like a pink color of the foil that I think would go really well. Place my snowflake in the center, and this time my snowflake, instead of being die cut out of the watercolor paper like we have in this one, it's of the same foil. So therefore the watercolor paper becomes this background look. And I'm not going to worry about adding any color definition to this. I'm going to leave it plain. You could, if you wanted to, and you could take your pen and you could outline the outline of this piece, but I like it plain. I like it having a little bit of a softer look to it. Go ahead and punch your piece right through here. Oh, I know why I did the other circle. Haha, I'm stupid. Okay. I forgot the reasoning behind it. Okay, I have a brad here. It's a little bit different. This one I've got is a flocked brad, so it doesn't have any shiny or anything. I need to make my hole a little bit bigger. So it's just a little bit of a different feel to it. Just a little bit of a softer center there. Go ahead and put this down. Open that up, and I need to run one more circle. So instead of putting a sentiment in the back, I'm actually going to run the circle. I could have, instead of putting the circle there, I could have waited and done the circle at the very end. I mean, I wasn't thinking too clearly at the time, apparently. So instead of doing a sentiment, you can do another circle just to cover up that brad that you have there. There it is. Just goes like that. Very pretty. And there, so another little fun snowflake using the watercolor paper in a different way. So you can use it as the small snowflake, you can use it as the background piece, and I'm going to make one more, but I'm not going to show you on camera. You'll just see a picture, and it's using the same principle. It's that background snowflake piece that I've cut out with a colored foil versus like a silver or a copper, so not a metallic, but a color. I just think these are so fun. I mean, they're just so cool. They have, you know, kind of fun dimension. You've handmade pieces, you die come out. They've got these foily pieces. They're an ornament, they're a tag, they're just kind of everything. Supply links are going to be down below, along with all the up-close pictures, some of them of which you've already seen, but you'll see the one that's the pink one here in a minute. And don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys again later. Bye-bye.